discuss lessons learnt campaigning with the Democratic Party and how progressive activists can utilise them in the Australian political context. Some questions to include are: will online campaigning solve all our problems? How can you build viable online communities? How can you ensure you are listening to the right voices online, not just the loudest? And what are the essential things local campaigns need to do online? Now, I hope to answer these in a roundabout way today, but instead of being specific, and in keeping with the spirit of this conference, I wanted to break open a few ideas around what the internet means for progressive politics, democracy, and the Labor Party. I'd also like to clear up a few furphies around online campaigning, because I think the internet, on one hand, is really important to the party, but at the same time, on the other hand, not that important. So firstly, in giving a talk, a digital talk, someone in my shoes right now would probably make an elaborate PowerPoint presentation that describes the rise and rise of social media in our lives, using various interesting facts to make the case. They might use points like 2/3 of the world's online population visit a social network every day. Your children think email is too slow, and so 2005. They prefer to use instant messenger and chat. 13 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every minute. If Facebook were a country, it would be the 8th most populated in the world. And more eyeballs would see your advertisement if you ran it on Facebook than running it on any Australian TV show. Finally, organisations that ignore social media now will probably be out of business in 5 years' time. The presentation would also probably include a cute video describing social media in the real world. Tim and Sarah buy an ice cream from Bob's ice cream shop and then tell their friends about it, who tell their friends about it, and Bob's ice cream shop becomes really popular. The powers of word of mouth. Bob must be happy. You get that old media, sorry, I just flicked the page ahead. I'm going to take a different approach than that, and there will be no PowerPoint. I'm going to assume everyone in this room actually gets that the internet is an integrated part of our lives in 2011. You bank online, you shop online, you read the news online, you gamble online, you may even date online. You may be doing some of that right now, in which case, please pay attention to me. You get that old media like TV and radio are slowly fading, as demonstrated by the closing of major newspaper outlets around the world, and that social media sites like Facebook and Twitter are not just a fad. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to use sort of online, internet and social media as interchangeable, but for those who aren't familiar with the term social media, Wikipedia's description is as follows: social media are media for social interaction, using highly accessible and scalable communication techniques. Social media is the use of web-based and mobile technologies to turn communication into interactive dialogue. Again, the two best examples of social media platforms you probably know are Facebook and Twitter, but there are many, many others. So look, in 2008, while I was working in Washington, I was approached to write a campaign plan for the Telugu Desam Party, the TDP in India. Talking through the strategy, I wondered how we could communicate our message to millions of Indian voters who lived in rural areas without the key communication staples of television and radio, not to mention the internet. Short of sending a text message to everyone saying, "Vote for us and Sachin Tendulkar will personally visit your house," I was told the most effective strategy for political messaging in India was to find a soon-to-be-released Bollywood film, splice it with campaign advertisements, set up a large screen in the town square, and get everyone together on a Saturday night to watch it. I'm told organisers would promote the night via face-to-face visits with important members of each village, who would then spread news of the event via word of mouth. The personal endorsement of those villages' influential members drove others to participate, thus raising attendance. So, of course, I wondered at how rudimentary this technique was. Where was all the data that Mitch talked about? Where are all the mail pieces, the radio cuts, the slick TV strategy, and the phone bank program? Then I thought, wait, don't digital PR firms right here in Washington, or in this case Sydney, charge corporations and companies tens of thousands of dollars to develop so-called word-of-mouth strategies? So clearly, this particular organising strategy was in fact extremely effective, because it was tapping into the original, the only social online social network, the local village community. the ultimate unit of community. Now, it's this very chain of events that digital PR professionals seek to mimic using online tools, and that are at the heart of social media outcomes. So, according to many internet evangelists, social media can indeed create that same effect. And moreover, it can actually help create offline activism itself. Activism to participate, to tell your friends, to join in, to take action, to take a stand, to donate, to go see the movie in the town square, and ultimately to vote. So what I'd like to do is argue that we're experiencing what I called a social media expectation bubble. That social media does not have the power to replicate those real offline relationships and real activism to the extent that we wish they could. Why is this? Author Malcolm Gladwell, a critic of online social networks, suggests that online networks are made up of so-called weak ties, while offline networks, some of the ones we're seeing in this room today, are made up of so-called strong ties. Weak ties are online friends of friends and acquaintances. Strong ties are offline relationships with people you know and interact with regularly. Instead of promoting real activism, online social networks promote so-called slacktivism. You can join the Save Darfur group with a click of a button. Tick, good deed done for the day. Offline social networks, on the other hand, create genuine offline activism, which is real and which is high risk. Some recent examples of offline high-risk activism in various countries throughout the Middle East, some people point to these, where citizens have taken up arms in protest against various regimes with the hope of replacing them with democratic rule. We've all seen the news. Many commentators have said that social networking sites, such as Twitter and Facebook, were central to the success of this activism in places like Egypt and Iran. Terms like Twitter revolution have been used regularly. This seems like a stretch to me. Anton Root, a political blogger, puts it best. He says, in reality, internet penetration rates in the Arab world are low. Internet by itself is not a democratising power. It does not have the ability to uproot a dictator by simply unliking him. Its strength is in its organisational and mobilising possibilities. It is able to turn an internal desire into an international dilemma. He says in the context of authoritative regimes, social media is not enough to cause social change. He's saying as long as activism exists, the internet can help, but the medium itself is not the solution. And as other commentators rightly point out, movements have existed and governments have been overthrown long before Twitter was invented. Its strength, though, is it allows for a popular political discourse to emerge, which can then lead to mass protest and then subsequent political change. The internet and social media can make a difference in echoing media messages via friends, family, colleagues, and leading to people hitting the streets in protest. And this is the key to the internet. It's an organising tool. It helps coordinate movements and public media campaigns that were previously only possible via formal organisations. And for formal organisations like Organising for America, it can be an enormously powerful tool. So I guess point number one is online campaigning is not the solution per se, it's a tool. So fast forward to this week in the US, where President Barack Obama went and met an important member of his own community about an upcoming event important in his life. He sat down with Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg to do an interview about the 2012 presidential campaign. Why was he there? No doubt Mr. Obama was hoping to generate positive word of mouth amongst his online community to once again help him to victory. And this is where online campaigning is so important for political parties and candidates. Consumption of information itself has changed. We no longer huddle around the TV at 6 o'clock in the evening feasting on news, but rather we snack on news throughout the day. And if you're a member of Gen Y, it's likely that you're not even watching TV at all. By engaging with the 26-year-old Papa Smurf of the Facebook village, President Obama at one level was simply engaging with a network whose only source of information is the internet. To ignore that growing group would be political suicide. So now to the ALP. To its credit, the ALP has not completely ignored this group, and recent elections have demonstrated that Labor at least has the right online tools in place. For those of you who don't know, Labor has its own social network at www.alp.org, where, like Facebook, you can start your own profile, join a group, send messages and generally engage with us in the community. During last year's federal election, this was an Australian political first. Labor has Think Tank, an ideas generator where you can contribute your own ideas and the community can vote those ideas up or down. Now, this is important because I understand yesterday there was a discussion about the UK Labour Party's difficulty in implementing a digital platform because it would require the party to change its constitution. I'm not sure if anyone here caught that presentation, but this is something the Labor Party actually has done in implementing its own digital platform. At National Conference, Labor formally created a class of online support who can participate in policy formation via Think Tank, and those top policy results, as voted on by the community, would be submitted to National Conference just as a submission from an offline branch would do. So I think it's quite important.